Great. So I am just going to start off with some questions that we've prepared on our end, but if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat so our speakers can answer them. So the first question I have is, how and when did you find out what you wanted to study or do for a career?
I'll go first. I became more aware of the climate crisis in 7th grade. A lot of my family is from West Virginia, and there was a big chemical spill in Parkersburg, and they basically knocked a bunch of toxic chemicals that's in Teflon straight into the water supply. And so I found out in more of a different way than a lot of kids, but I think that's really strengthened my passion for rural activism. I feel sometimes in the climate movement we are focused so much on like a certain portion of citizens, and we focus on like melting glaciers or Amazonian deforestation, but like that's not relatable to a lot of people. So I'm trying to shift the way that we are covering climate media to make it more pertinent for different communities.
Awesome, that was a great answer. Could you just restate the question for me one more time?
Yeah, sure. So my question was, how and when did you find out what you wanted to study or do as a career?
Yeah, so I know my whole thing now is computer science, but I actually grew up my entire life wanting to be an astrophysicist. If you ask me between the ages of about 9 and 17 what I wanted to do when I grew up, would have proudly declared an astrophysicist. And that spark happened when I went to a planetarium show at the American Museum of Natural History. If that museum sounds at all familiar, it's where the Night at the Museum movies were shot. And they have a really incredible planetarium. And I remember sitting there as about an 8 or 9-year-old. You're in this, big dome-like room, and you're looking up, and there's this whole projected cosmos above you. It feels like you're floating around in the middle of the universe. And I thought to myself, oh my God, like people can spend their whole lives studying space. Okay, cool, sign me up. So I kind of stamped it on my personality that I was going to be an astrophysicist one day, and really took on that dream with a lot of pride. And then something, I don't know, a lot of different things, when you're 8, you don't really know what you want to do with your whole life. Obviously, you're more sparked by curiosity rather than thinking about, long-term career. So as I got older and I began to think more about, well, who am I as a person? What are my inherent skill sets? What resources do I already have? I began to think more about where I would be the best fit in the STEM world. I've known for a very long time that I wanted to be a part of STEM in general. And while I had this like really big passion for astrophysics, I was also just obsessed with technology from a very young age. As a little kid, I like always wanted the next tablet that was out. I was like always watching videos of everything Apple Pro. He's like a YouTuber that just reviews Apple products, and I was always just like a total gadget like nerd. And I remember in 5th grade, I had like a Kindle Fire HD, and I like somehow like jailbroke it and turned it into an Android. Like I don't even know what I was doing when I was 10, but I was up to some weird stuff going on in technology. But basically, I always had that passion for tech as well. And then when I did Code with Clossy, which I did last summer, so going into my first year of college, it was the first time where I was ever in an environment that was surrounded by people who too wanted to go into STEM. It was more particularly computer science, but for me, I'd gone to art school my whole life. I went to both middle school and high school for drama. So just the fact that I wanted to do anything in STEM was like totally just not what anybody else was wanting to do. So it was the first time I was really in an environment where there were lots of people like me. And it was the first time I ever learned about really the issues that still are super prevalent in tech, especially for women and people of color. And I was like, oh my God, I remember we watched a clip from a incredible documentary called Code, Debugging the Gender Gap. And I was sitting there scribbling down like literally everything, learning so much, and really just wanted to take that and use that, and was really inspired by the idea that if I could become a computer science major, it would show another girl that they could too. So I really kind of took on this whole new thing of computer science and wanting to make tech in particular a more inclusive space, to make the entirety of STEM at large a more inclusive place.
Thank you so much. My next question is, what advice do you have for students who are trying to figure out what they want to do?
So this is something I talk about a lot, and I give a lot of talks on the concept of passion and saying yes to your STEM passion. That's the name of the talk I give a lot. And I think that people kind of get, oh my gosh. Sorry, there was a car driving by very loudly. I think that people can kind of get a little bit intimidated with the idea of knowing exactly what you want to do with your life. We're kind of programmed as children to believe that we should grow up from age, 6 declaring that you're going to be an actor, and like that's that. They make you like, draw a picture and write a sentence about what you want to be when you grow up. So you're really taught from a young age that you should know exactly what you want to do. And I think that that can really intimidate a lot of people. So a lot of what I'm all about is if you find anything that at all sparks your curiosity, follow it. Although I'm not now continuing to pursue astrophysics, I had that passion for astrophysics all throughout my childhood, and that brought me to every single opportunity I have today. My application to get into Code with Clossy was about astronomy and about how I would use my coding skills to make the astronomy databases like not look so ugly, because I don't know if you've ever been in an astronomy database, you just don't even know what you're looking at. Like that is programming from like the 90s. Like it is not cute. So I was all like, oh, I want to make it more accessible to people. I want to make just the design better and make it so that a user can more easily understand what they're even looking at here, right? So that passion for astrophysics has completely led me to where I am today, even though now I'm not actually taking a single class relating to astrophysics. So I think that it's so important, if anything at all sparks your curiosity, listen to it. Even if it's something different than what you've already kind of said to yourself is going to be that thing that you do with your whole life. Let yourself evolve, let your interests grow as you grow. If you want to do the same thing since you wanted to do when you were 6, bro, are you the same person you were when you were 6? No. So let it feel natural for your interest to evolve over time, but make sure that if there's anything that's at all interesting to you, you follow that and you continue to explore that.
That was a fantastic answer. Kind of going on that, I think like when you're following your passions, you're not just following topics that interest you, but also like your skill sets and the skills that you like to use in your different activities. So whether you're doing like tactile work or whether you like analysis. For me personally, I had thought that environmental science was very science heavy. And unlike Izzy here, I'm not much of a STEM person. I think I like it to the point that I can understand it, but I didn't really find my niche in environmental science until I started seeking out the humanities opportunities, until I started reading more about the possibilities with environmental policy and international relations. And I had to follow my skill set to find that out. I'm very good at analysis, I'm very good at statistics and reading numbers, but I'm not so good at like doing experiments and whatnot. So I think it's important to find what interests you, but also how you're doing it and what that style interests you as well.
Lovely, thank you so much. So my next question is, what was the process that you went through to figure out which colleges you want to apply to? And follow up on that, what advice would you give to students who are trying to figure out what colleges to apply to?
I used LinkedIn personally. So I first started by looking at the top colleges in my prospective majors. I was looking at environmental science, but I was also looking at economics and global affairs and international relations. And I don't come from a high school where a lot of people go to selective schools. So I didn't know anyone that went to these schools. So I would use the filtering options on LinkedIn to look up current students in the programs I was looking at or recent alum. And I would shoot them a little message on LinkedIn and say, hi, my name is Emma. I'm from this high school. I'm going into my senior year. I have some questions about this program at this school. And I found out some very interesting nuances about each school, because I think you can find a lot about their philosophies on their websites and such, but you don't find out about the experiential tangents as much. For example, I applied to the University of Notre Dame, which is a service-oriented school, and that really attracted me. But what I didn't know until I talked to one of the alumni that I did is that it's very outreach service oriented. So it's not so much service like in South Bend, it's more service like in the county as a whole, which led me to apply because that's also something I'm really passionate about. So I would say in general, you just have to talk to people. Like networking is such a powerful tool, and there are so many people that are willing to help you. And the worst that someone can say if they don't want to help you is no.
Wow, that was such good advice. Like, I wish that I could have had that advice when I was going through the college process. Um, so yeah, I guess my experience is a little bit different. As I said, astrophysics, astronomy was my entire thing. So I applied to every school as a prospective astronomy major. So I was looking at schools that offered astronomy and like had good astronomy programs. And I was interested in like learning about what if they had an observatory and like if there were a lot of astronomy majors there. So for what I was particularly interested at the time, I definitely made sure to apply to a school that had what I wanted. And now it gets interesting, right? Because now I'm not doing astronomy at all. And then there's some things that I found that I'm actually really, really interested in. And as much as I love Barnard, Barnard is a liberal arts school. So the tea that you don't quite get, that I think that liberal arts schools are packaged and marketed in a way that is not quite accurate. I always thought of a liberal arts school as like having everything you could ever imagine, and like you just get to pick and choose and like, oh my gosh. Well, that's true in some ways. There's tons of different programs, but none of them get super specific because they're not specialized in that way. Whereas if you go to a school that, like if you go to an engineering school, you're taking much more niche classes because that's the specialization of the program. So for computer science, like a lot of people do computer science in engineering schools, but it ended up working out for me because I don't really want to be in an engineering school. I still wanted that liberal arts education regardless of what it was that I was studying. And so something that I also want to get at, and I'm a good example of it because what I'm now majoring is not what I applied to major in, but I still love the school I ended up at. And that is because I chose a school that had missions and values that most closely aligned with what I personally believe. Barnard was not on my radar basically at all. I had a different first choice that I didn't get into, that I applied early to. I had a different school all throughout the regular decision process that I tried to convince myself that I was meant to go to, and it was not true. And a lot of my friends and family friends were always very much like, Izzy, like, Barnard's really good fit for you. And like, I just really couldn't see it. I just really didn't for a really long time. And what ultimately got me to say, yup, Barnard is the place for me, was when I read the last sentence on Barnard's mission statement of Barnard's website, which if we have high schoolers, which I think this is who we're talking to, I highly recommend that you read those mission statements of every school, but definitely Barnard. I'm gonna rep Barnard, of course. But the last sentence of Barnard's mission statement, at least at the time, was, there is no better time to attend a college whose sole mission is to amplify women's power to change the world. And I've had that memorized since I read it for the first time. And for me, I was like, yep, got it. Yes, like that's when it really clicked for me, because and then I was looking more at the website, and like there were some things that I literally could have written myself that Barnard was saying that they're all about. So I think that it's so important that you're choosing to go to a school that you really do align with it. What the school believes is what you believe, because your interests can change, right? That's what we've been talking about. That's what I've been talking about, that astrophysics, whatever, y'all just listen to me, so my whole situation, right? So it's so important that you're choosing to go to a school that it's bigger than what the program exactly is, right? Because there's grad school, there's PhD programs, there's always more opportunities to get that specialization if that's really, really what you want. But you only have one opportunity to be in this learning environment that has a much more just holistic approach to shaping you as a human being, which is really what college is. So I really recommend thinking deeply about, what do these schools value? Read up on some of like the people that are on the administration, like the higher ups, the people with power at the school. Barnard's president, her name is President Bylock. She is amazing. She's a cognitive scientist who literally studies why girls are less encouraged to pursue math and science. So like, hello, nice to meet you. I want to be you, right? So like, people at your school, if you can look up to them and you can say, wow, like that's in some ways what I want to do, that really says something about what the school stands for, if those are the people that are in charge, right? So do that research and think a little bit more like big picture, I would say, than necessarily like exactly what your program is. Do both, but I think that's some helpful information.
That was great. Thank you so much. So you know how a lot of us just in hopes of impressing colleges, take on a bunch of honor classes and a bunch of AP classes and end up just wearing ourselves out, and our social life goes down the drain, our mental health goes down the drain. So what do you believe is a balanced set of classes and a balanced schedule, and how should a student create one?
I firmly believe that the amount of advanced courses on your transcript will never outweigh the passion you have. So, for example, I did an independent study where I did stream research during my senior year, and that was a pass-fail class. It didn't count for course credit. It didn't boost my GPA at all. But I think that that course showed colleges that I am more than who I am in academia, that I have broader interests. And I think colleges want to see that you are pursuing other things than schoolwork, even if your courses may be something like band or art or something in that field. That shows them that you're a multifaceted human being, and you're showing them that you're prioritizing what you most care about. Honestly, like AP classes and honors classes, like taking that extra one usually doesn't make or break your application. What makes or breaks your application is whether colleges can or cannot see that you, one, have passion, but two, take initiative with that passion to learn more and go deeper. So it's definitely a fine balance. But I think like if you're debating between taking that elective that you pursue as a hobby or you're taking this extra advanced course, I would go with the hobby, because that's something that you can talk about, and that's something that they'll be able to see reflected in your essays and your interview.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that also just like AP classes and grades in general and standardized testing, like all of the things that are basically just check boxes on an application, that is like becoming less and less and less important. So I am all for passion over academics and numbers and scores and all of that stuff that I'm very anti, in fact. And I think that 100%, like take a class if you're really interested in it, but don't do it because there's some like other force in your head saying that that's what you're supposed to do. For instance, I don't know if you've heard this before, but this was told to me all throughout high school, that you're supposed to take 4 years of language, and if you don't, you won't get into an Ivy. Like that was just like something that I was told, and like that was that. And like I'm from New York City, and like applying to Ivies, I mean it is different depending on where you're from, but definitely like at my school, like my entire friend group did, like that's just how it worked, and like that was just the vibes, right? And I went to a performing arts school that we did both academics and arts, and that was still how it was. So especially in New York City, like that's just what's expected of you, honestly. And so everyone was always like, yep, 4 years of language, and my language was French. And me and French, like I was taking it since 6th grade, like never clicked. I would freak out every time my French teacher would call on me. Like French and me were not homies. So I had the choice my sophomore year. For LaGuardia, I only technically had to take 2 years of language to actually graduate and like meet the requirement. And so I had the choice between, do I take AP French my junior year of high school and be upset all the time, or instead do I actually take a different class? And what am I interested at the time? Okay, STEM. Oh my God, you go to LaGuardia? Oh my gosh, cool, hello. Okay, cool, we should chat. Okay, anyways, I was already on the advanced math track. So I was already gonna be taking AP, what am I saying? AP calculus, AB. And then if I had that AP French, what do I do about that? Do I take it? Do I not? I was really leaning towards it. I was like, well, that's what everyone says they're supposed to do. People know the system better than I do. I literally told Mr. Della Penna, I was like, bonjour, taking AP French, you proud of me? And he was like, oh, so, French. Anyways, then I was like, you know what? Or I could take AP Computer Science Principles, which is not AP Computer Science A, that is like really hard. Computer Science Principles, like honestly, I got a 100 both semesters. That never happens in a computer science class, so that should give the vibes. I ended up taking that class instead. So then I was taking 2 AP math classes, and obviously that made way more sense than me taking AP French, regardless of this higher up systems saying that that's how it's supposed to be. So I think what this ultimately gets at is you need to check in with yourself. You need to know what your priorities are. You need to know why you're taking these classes in the first place. Is it you who genuinely wants to take them, or is there some other external factor saying that that's what it's supposed to be? Because what ultimately happens in these college applications is someone is looking over who you are, and they're trying to determine if you are a good fit at their school. So if you have an application that isn't even authentic to yourself, that acceptance rate isn't even, that acceptance letter isn't even authentic, because they're accepting someone that doesn't have your values and doesn't even have your interests, right? So I think it's so much better to take classes that you genuinely care about, do extracurriculars you genuinely care about, and create an application that is genuinely who you are, so that if you get accepted or rejected, you know that it is about you, right? It is about how you fit in at that school. And honestly, please reject me if you don't think I'm the right fit for your school. I don't want to be there. It's a no from both of us, dog. Like, seriously. So make your application the most authentic it can be. And in order to do that, take the classes that are actually you.
Thank you. That was so amazing. I'm sure there's many people in the audience that are interested in STEM or environmental science. So my question is, what extracurriculars did you do that align with these things?
So yeah, my extracurriculars were like my whole thing in high school. Like that was definitely where I think my application shined the most. I think that my personal statement was probably the best part of the application. But I think in my extracurriculars, my whole approach to the college process and the college apps and stuff is like that application, you have to have a story that you're telling. You need to know what your story is. You need to have the evidence to back it up, right? What's a story without any good evidence or any good dialogue and all that, whatever literary analogy I'm trying to make. So I really cared a lot in general about like wanting to do extracurriculars that I was genuinely interested in. And because I went to LaGuardia, which is an art school, there honestly just weren't that many STEM opportunities. And it kind of took me a second for that to sink in, right? Freshman year of high school, like I didn't, I cared about school, but I was much more focused on social things and like being a 14-year-old. Then sophomore year is kind of when I mastered school. I became like my yearbook quote, which my friends turned down, which I guess I'm glad, but it was supposed to be kind of a nerd, but like a cool one, like shut up. But I took a lot of pride in like school and like made school like my thing sophomore year. So then by junior year, I was like, okay, cool. I have the school thing down. I have the friends thing down. Let me now start doing extracurriculars. So really between my junior and senior year, I would say was when I was just the most involved with whatever I was passionate about. It was really, I kind of had this awakening going into junior year that I've been saying for my whole life that I want to be an astrophysicist. Well, let me do something about it. I kind of thought that I wouldn't be able to explore any of these passions until I was much older. And that was actually just me being a little bit lazy and not actually wanting to act on what I was interested in. So I pushed out of the way and I was like, wait, I can do these things today. I don't need to wait for someone else to come along and say, now you can be an astrophysicist. Let me go find those opportunities for myself. So that's when I started to look into, especially online spaces. If anyone's ever here familiar with Girl Genius magazine, that was like the first STEM thing I was ever a part of. I was on the team when we had like 20 members. I met Shivali, who's the founder, on like a weird extracurricular obsessed with getting into college app that I don't know what it's up to these days, but I became really into just finding opportunities. I'd always be on Instagram looking up STEM magazine, STEM this, STEM that. Like I really was so hungry to actually do something with this passion that I've been saying that I had. And I started to take classes at the American Museum of Natural History, the same place that I discovered that little passion for astrophysics. Well, I started taking classes there. I took my first ever astronomy class called Secrets of the Solar System. And, we're asked to introduce ourselves to people like our whole lives, right? So I said my normal introduction, I want to be an astrophysicist when I grow up. And for the first time in my life, everyone else said me too. And I was like, oh my God, wow, that's crazy, because that's never been what happens. And I was like, wow, cool. People can have the same interest as me. I love it. And though the classes I took ended up being prerequisite for really what I think my strongest extracurricular was that I was able to hold an internship in the astrophysics department at that same museum. And those were classes that were prerequisites for this work. So I conducted astrophysics research all throughout my senior year under a postdoctoral fellow at the museum who was studying brown dwarfs. If you don't know what that is, you got like a star over here, you got a planet over here, and brown dwarfs kind of take up that middle region. So they have a lot of similar properties to both planets and stars. So lots of cool stuff that astronomers can find. And my team actually ended up discovering a brown dwarf 66 light years from Earth through an error in our code. So lots of foreshadowing. That was before I was interested in computer science like that. I didn't even really like that coding all that much. But anyways, yeah. So basically, once I kind of said to myself, okay, like I have this interest, I'm going to do something about it. It was like a domino effect. I kept finding more and more opportunities. So that's why that goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of this talk, right? Like if you have anything that you're interested in, do something about it. Go find those opportunities. Be proactive because you are the only one in charge of your life. So if you're not going on and seeking those opportunities, don't think for a second that they're just going to fall in your lap. Like that's on you to go after them and to find them. And maybe you'll find out that one of them actually makes you say, you know what, I'm actually not as interested in doing that. The tea is that my internship was one of the main reasons that I learned that I don't really want to sit on my computer looking at data of objects really, really far away my whole life. Like that's actually not what I'm interested in. I like to talk to people. I want to talk to people. So, but I never would have learned that if I hadn't had done X, ABC to get me to that internship in the first place. So you got to be proactive. You got to be your biggest advocate because if you aren't, then no one else is going to be.
My experience was definitely not as intuitive as Izzy's. I started off high school during freshman and sophomore year, joining all of the clubs, National Honor Society, FBLA, the different little like specialized honor societies. And I can tell you, like Izzy said, I didn't feel that I was like growing because I didn't feel that a lot of those activities really brought out my most authentic self. And I felt like I plateaued in a lot of places. So by junior year, I started to specialize and look at the different organizations I was working with and say, what do I really care about? Where am I a valuable member? And that's when I started getting more involved with Penn State Extension, doing like climate activism. I also started volunteering more at my local food pantry. Both of those interests eventually led to me writing a research paper about urban agriculture in Bangladesh, and I was able to present it at a global conference. But I think like pursuing those interests and specializing is what really helped me. I stayed active in National Honor Society and student government because I like talking to people. I like organizing events. I like collaboration. But I dropped those activities where I didn't really do anything and they didn't pad my resume. Quite honestly, all of those special honor societies and those different little clubs, I didn't put them on my college application because they aren't valuable. They don't add anything to who you are unless you were really involved. So I would say like really be authentic and be picky about what you choose to pursue and make sure that like you are growing while you're doing them. The only way you will grow is if you're pursuing things that you really enjoy and are authentic. If you don't enjoy something anymore, if you don't enjoy this organization or activity, don't do it. Cut it off. Cut ties. You don't need it to be the best version of yourself. And there's no one extracurricular that will guarantee you success or happiness in the future unless you truly enjoy it.
Thank you so much. So my next question is about internships. So what internships did you do in high school and or college? And if you did do any internships, when and where? And a follow-up question on that, what advice and resources do you have for students who are trying to find internships that are kind of the right fit for them?
I did 2 internships in high school / going into college. I first interned at my local state representative's office. That is where I figured out I didn't want to work in government because I wasn't really very liking to the dynamics of it, but I did a lot of like local media calls. I attended a lot of local events with her. And I also have another one this summer. I am a Borlaug run intern at the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, where I'm conducting research based on literature review concerning agroforestry and in a particular topic called neglected and underutilized species. I'm basically researching how we can change agriculture to pivot towards more indigenous crops and different varieties of species. 12 plants and 5 animal species fuel 75% of the world's calories, and that is not healthy for building a resilient food system. So I'm researching how we can change that, especially for rural communities. I found these opportunities by cold emailing people. I know I mentioned LinkedIn earlier. LinkedIn is so powerful and learning how to cold email people is the best skill that I have ever learned, because I have skills and I have relevant experience. I don't always know about certain opportunities, nor are certain opportunities just pre-made there for you. A lot of internship advisors like to see initiative. So you can reach out to different professors at local community colleges or universities to see if they need help with research. Also local business owners, even in organizations that are not close to you for remote work. I think it's a lot about that. Additionally, you can also mention your skill sets that you learn in coursework. This is why it's so important to choose your classes wisely, is because you develop skills, and internships require skills. They don't rely as much on what you learn as much as how you're able to learn and how you're able to do it.
Yeah, that was some really, really good tangible advice. So I definitely hope y'all took some notes on that response from Emma over here. Yeah, I feel like I kind of explained in my last response how my internship came about. That was the only internship I had in high school. And I also think that for me, like my whole situation was a little bit different. I had a pretty severe advantage when it came to college because my high school like has some clout for being a performing arts school. So the fact that I was kind of doing anything other than that, like a lot of people get into pretty good schools just like with the name LaGuardia. Like it definitely really does help, especially if you're applying to arts programs. So for me, because I was already doing anything that was definitely like beyond what a lot of my friends are doing in terms of extracurriculars and like having STEM be my whole thing, that definitely played to my advantage with college apps in general. But I also think that for my internship itself, I mean, I don't want to like go too much over what I've already said in the past. And I think that Emma's answer like is one of the best I've heard to that question, honestly. But for real, like you do need to be the person that reaches out. A lot of my mentality throughout my internship was that anyone that I'm possibly interacting with right now is a future collaborator. That's the next person that I could be working with. And I think that mentality, just in anything that you do ever, being proactive and putting yourself out there, this is not quite, I wouldn't say that this is an internship now. It was a real job that I had at Code with Clossy over the past 4 weeks where I was an instructor assistant. But for a lot of people, instructor assistants, like it's a lot of people who have been in the Code with Clossy community for a really long time, and they kind of have that they have history with people in this space, so they have an advantage. And for me, I was new. I only did Code with Clossy last year, but I loved it, right? And I knew, okay, I'm obsessed with this thing. I really want to be more a part of it. So I straight up just like every single person of the Code with Clossy staff, there's 5 main people who run it, they all know who I am. I've arranged coffee chats with every single one of them. I've asked like, hey, like for whatever it is that they're doing, like I'm always saying, I have some ideas for how to grow Code with Clossy or ways this and that. Like I'm always the one who is providing ways in which I can be of service. And I think that that's so nice because like life is busy, y'all. People don't have the time to think about how they can use this person that like they're already doing their thing. So unless you show up and say, this is how I can be in addition to what you already have going on, that's the only way that you're really going to get someone to want to work with you. So I think that what it comes down to is it is about skills. Yeah, it is about what do you bring to the table? What do you already have that you have to offer? And I think that it also comes down to pitching yourself. One of my biggest things, and really what I have the most going for me, is that I'm good at personal branding. I've spoken at over 30 organizations over the past year for literally just like posting about myself on Instagram and saying like STEM, yes, you can do it too. Like, I'm not doing anything all that crazy, and I'm honestly just being myself. But because I'm so out there about what I'm passionate about, what I stand for, what I believe I can give that's valuable to you and your community, people want to work with me, right? So you got to know how to pitch yourself, right? Everything, like, we're always on Shark Tank, y'all, like, for real. Like, everything is about pitching, everything is about collaborations. You got to know what you bring to the table, you got to know what you're in the market for. So when I've talked about how to get an internship, the two things that I think you always need to start with is, what do you have to bring to the table, and then what do you want out of this experience? Because if you're just like applying to things and shooting your shot for the sake of doing it, I don't know if you all played baseball, but like, or hit before, but if you bat and kind of just like, all right, I batted, but like, all right, I'm done now, that ball's going nowhere. So you got to bat and you got to go all the way through, because you got to know, like, you have to know what that end goal looks like. This also even gets at like manifestation, the way in which, just like, if you know for yourself that whatever you want to happen, you can make it happen, I swear it'll happen. Like, so much of how I view my career and like who I am now in the future comes from, I have this vision of myself, and I just know that's going to be what happens, because I'm going to keep doing the same things, and I'm looking at how things have been going, and I'm seeing what's working, and I'm seeing what's not, and just being really real with yourself, and just having that relationship with yourself that is built on a confidence and trust in yourself, that you know that if you want something, that you're going to make it happen somehow. So I think that with an internship, like, if you show up as someone that is confident, that knows they can bring something valuable to the team, and there's a fine line between like confidence and arrogance and cockiness, like, you definitely have to be mindful of that, but learn how to do that humble brag, learn how to say, like, I've done this and that, and I can do this and that with you. If you're giving them like basically no blanks for them to fill in, and they have some availability in their lives to have someone else on board, why wouldn't they want you on the board, right? So just think about all that. Think about some of the stuff that Emma said. And honestly, y'all, like, it's not even like, I mean, some of it too, like, it's a privilege that I grew up in New York City. It's a privilege that I had this museum. It's a privilege that I knew about those opportunities that existed. But at the end of the day, like, if you want to find something, you got Google. There's so many ways in which you can learn about opportunities. So do that research, know what you have to bring to the table, and know what you want out of this experience, because something is just bound to work out.
Thank you so much. So my next question is, where do you see yourself being or doing in, let's say, 5 to 10 years in the future?
So I know I was just like, I know exactly what I don't want to do with my life. That is a lie. I have no idea, actually. I know what it is that I care about, though. And I know what it is that I have this vague vision in my head, I'd say more. Like, I don't know what's going to be filled in. I don't know where I'll end up working, but I know that if I just continue to do what I'm already doing, that opportunities will continue to emerge, that I'll kind of get closer and closer to having that aha moment where, like, yep, this is it. I think in the near future, I really, as I've been saying, with Classy, I've really never interacted with an organization before that so closely aligns with my values as a person, and same with Barnard. So a lot of work I'm interested in doing is, how do we make computer science at Barnard more like Code with Classy's computer science. And I'm working on a project right now that is working with Barnard has some really cool centers. One of them is the Center for Engaged Pedagogy. So I have like an actual adult partner working with me on this project, which is very cool. Normally I'm just like on my computer doing my little thing alone. So that's fun. And I'm really just, what I wanted, when I say like what my life mission is, I want to change the perception of STEM. And I really like how ginormous that sounds, because that means there's always something for me to be doing. There's always something for me to be working towards. So I like to have more of a broader idea of where I'm headed, so that my path can be as wobbly as I want it to be. I'm really anti having like this to this to that. You know, I talk about how I want to go to grad school here and get my PhD there, and who knows if that'll happen. But I like to have this vague outline for my life, so that I just always am moving forward. And I think that it's so important to do that, especially like when you're at, you know, once you get into college, I would say, like, you gotta be intentional with your time, y'all. Like, time is a limited, finite resource. We have 24 hours in a day. So how are you using them, right? And I think that it's so hard to find that balance in college, and especially now with COVID that we're like getting a little bit to be more social again, it's so hard to balance social things and balance career things. But that's why it's important that you have a place that you're working towards, that every day when you're committing to your classes or committing to your extracurriculars or your internship or whatever it may be, that there's a reason why you're moving in that direction. So I think for me, like that's just definitely what I think about. And I think a little bit more like small scale. And it's kind of freaks me out to think like what my exact thing I'll be doing right now in 5 years is. I literally could not tell you that at all. But I know in the short term scheme of things, which organizations I want to be continuing to work with, which professors are doing cool research that I want to potentially reach out to this year, which, what ideas do I have for the future of this project at GYEF Classy and Barnard? How do I foresee a partnership continuing to happen, and how do I be a part of making it happen? And then having that bigger overall picture, that bigger overall vision of the future, right? Because if we're all working on our own little things, but all have these like really aspirational kind of main ideas or main kind of through lines and all the work that we do, I just feel like it's inevitable that we'll create some really cool things that make the world and the future a better place. So have that big starry vision in the sky, right? And have the things that are on your desk that you're working towards every day, and kind of don't stress out too much about the space in between, because you'll get there as you go.
I think I have a very similar perspective to Izzy. I don't know, like I can't tell you a concrete answer to what I will be doing. I have ethos and I have interests that I'm firmly cemented in, that I'm really passionate about, such as like environmental science, environmental justice particularly. And I know that I like being with people. I like talking. I like doing outreaches. So I'm kind of just following those things. I'm also entering my first year of college, so I haven't had that year to kind of see what opportunities are available. I know I like research, and I think that's okay, because as Izzy said, like if you make yourself a wide lane, you have a lot of room to wobble around and see what interests you. I think you can also be more than one thing. I hate when people say, like, what are you going to be when you grow up? Because it's kind of implying that you're going to be your profession. That's who you are. But you can be so many different people. So I think in order to do that, I think you have to be open. So for me, I'm pursuing research, and I know that I'll continue to work with the World Food Prize, and that's about as concrete as it gets.
Wonderful. My next question is, what does a day in your life look like?
Well, this is hard to answer because it definitely depends on what has been going on. For the past 4 weeks, I've been on Zoom from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., which has been a lot of Zoom. And then normally I'm a little bit exhausted at that point, so I'll chill for a second. I'm very into working out for the mental gains of it. I feel like if I run on the treadmill, like I'm just so much more stable in life. So I'm pretty dedicated to going to the gym most days a week, like unless something's like really going on, and giving myself time to not think about anything and just focus on myself. I'm always kind of working on a different project. It's hard over the summer to like be on my same productivity grind as I am during the school year. Throughout the school year, my Bible is my Notion homepage. I don't know if y'all are Notion people, but like seriously, fun fact, if y'all follow me on Instagram after this at Izzy Lapis, I'm going to be introducing Notion Template Tuesday. So I'm going to be releasing some talents that I use in my life that keep me on my grind, and some ones that I wish I had for college apps and stuff like that. So that's a project that I'll be working on in the future. But normally with Notion, and when I'm in like more of a school mode, I like to plan out my day the night before, and I like time block my day. I have a Notion template that I made myself that is time blocked throughout the whole day. So it marks when I wake up and all the things in between. I have a 9 a.m. Swahili class Monday through Thursday next year that I purposely chose to have a 9 a.m. class that's only 50 minutes. So it's like I have to get up, I have to be in class. It's like actual school for the first time because Barnard was entirely online for the past year. And so my ideal is that I'm going to the gym before that. So we'll see if we can actually make that happen. But I have this theory in life that like, if I can do that, if I can go to the gym Monday through Thursday and then go to class, I will just be invincible. So we'll see if I can actually make it happen. But I'm really all about finding the pockets of time that you wouldn't necessarily think are like valuable usages of time, or kind of time that could be spent not necessarily doing work per se, but then if you do the work now, you don't have to do it later. Throughout high school, I lived an hour away from my school and I'd have to take the train. So I was on the train by 6:45, and y'all know I had my social studies binder out and I was doing my thing. Like I made mornings for that 45-hour block a time in which I got busy work done and things that were easier for me to do. So I'm always trying to think about, in the time frame that I have, where can I put my attention? So I'm definitely, I don't know if y'all know Grace Beverly. She is from London and is like iconic and is the CEO of like multiple businesses and is like 23. Anyways, she has this whole philosophy that's like quick ticks. She like splits up her tasks into like 3 different categories, and one of them is quick ticks, which is stuff that's just like easy to get done, and that's what you do first normally. And for me, I definitely do that too, because if I can accomplish something in the morning and just that one thing done, I've done something for the day. And that gives me the more energy to get more things done for the day. So I think mornings are the moment. Like if you can make mornings like your thing, like just the way in which you use your time later just becomes so much more valuable. So I think that I know I'm not quite answering the questions, but for the incoming school year, that's definitely how I think my time will be spent, by getting up early, going to class, and then class ends at 10 a.m. and I don't have my next class until 12 or 1, I think, actually. So I'm going to go straight to the library and get work done immediately and then take a lunch break before my next class. I'm also really big on eating and like having 3 meals a day and snacks in between. You need food to fuel your life. Like seriously, like eat. It's really important that we're getting that energy so that we can be more productive in the future. And I just think for me, like having Monday through Thursdays be when I'm just on my grind and letting the weekends be a little bit more chill, more relaxed. I'm at college and want to have a good time, right? So, but to have that Monday through Thursday, yep, point blank period, we're doing the same thing. Like I know what's happening. I'm on top of my stuff. I'm going to bed at a reasonable hour. I'm getting up. I'm eating a protein smoothie, and I'm, going and doing my thing in the morning. I think that that's just a really healthy mentality for me. But also I want to say, like, if anything I'm saying just doesn't resonate with you, like, you know yourself the best, right? You know what works for you. You know the times of day when you're most productive. Maybe that's 2 a.m. I don't know. For my coding friends, it normally is 2 a.m. I'm normally crying in my computer, not getting any coding done at 2 a.m. But for some people, they are. So I think to really, like, I don't know, I like to look at how other people do their days for inspiration, but I never want to mimic what anybody else does, because you are only your person, right? That person is only their person. They have their whole life and their lived experiences that have made it so that that's what works for them. So I think that, like, you need to figure out what works for you with the given moment, and it can be different from a weekend to a Tuesday to high school to college. Like, your vibes change as the circumstances change. So I think it's most important to do what ultimately works for you than what Instagram is telling you is the best way to have the most productive day of all time.
I completely agree with that. Personally, I gauge like what type of work I do during the day based on my energy levels. So for me, between 9 a.m. and 12 a.m., I can do like the really intense literature review and analysis that I'm doing for my internship now, for example. That's when I would get the most coursework done. That's when I would be most alert in my classes. 12 to 3 p.m. is just not my time. And that's okay. That's when I write emails. That's when I do more passive tasks. And that's just because for my personal circadian rhythm, I don't like that time of day, and it's okay. And then I kind of pick back up working after like 3 p.m. when I have time to hang out with friends or chill with my family around 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. That's my time. I love working at night, and that's okay. I used to be ashamed of that because I know that in a lot of like 9 to 5 societies, you're supposed to like wake up early in the morning, get it done, work, and then relax. But that's just not how I function. It's not what's most apt for me. And I think being really confident and really embracing the fact that you may have an alternate working schedule is really important. I know I'm not answering the question quite either, but that's just kind of when I work during the day. And I think it's about finding the right time for you and basing it really on your intuition.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your answers. It was incredibly insightful, and yeah, thank you so much again. And now we're just gonna close off with some this or that questions to lighten up the mood and things like that. So the first question that we had is vacation or staycation?
Vacation.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do vacation.
Yeah, I think those most agree. Yeah. Has anybody like done anything fun this summer? Or like everything?
I went to the Outer Banks, to the beach, but I haven't been doing much traveling recently, as you might imagine.
I am waking up at 4 in the morning today and going to California on a plane to visit my friends from school. So I've been looking forward to that trip for a while, flying alone. Let's go, big girl things. So yeah, that's like probably my biggest, will be the biggest vacation thing I've done and fun thing I've done this summer.
Wow, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing. And the next question I had for you is reality shows or documentaries?
Reality shows.
Yeah, yeah.
It's such a guilty pleasure of mine.
I don't know if any of you have seen Too Hot to Handle, a personal favorite of mine. Obsessed with Cam and Emily. I was very anti like love related shows. Like all my friends are obsessed with Love Island, and I was like, no. But I think I've been watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians since Kylie looked so different than she looks today. And I just have a place in my heart where pointless, mindless life television exists.
I've been obsessed recently with a show called Indian Matchmaking. It's new on Netflix. It is so good. Otherwise, The Real Housewives of New Jersey is superior.
Yeah, I think most of us have been thinking TV shows all summer. Next question, last question is coffee or tea?
So I don't know what this even is, honestly. I like chai lattes. So I don't know, I think is that like both? Like I feel like that's like both. So that's my answer. Coffee? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a coffee person too.
Thank you guys so much, and special thanks to the panelists who came. Yeah, and also if the attendees can't say like thank you or thank you in the chat to the panelists who came, that'd be great to share your gratitude and appreciation. And if you do have any like last questions, since we couldn't go over all of them, feel free to go on LinkedIn, search Izzy or Emma up, and you'll find them and you can contact them there. Thanks so much again.
Yeah, if thank you so much for having us. Seriously, if you have any question about anything, I definitely use Instagram the most. It's just my name at Izzy Lapis. You can DM me, like I'm very active on there. Probably post too often on there, honestly, on my stories. But please DM me, like I'm always happy to help. Also, if you are more interested in learning about like what the actual breakdown of my college application was, I do get asked that question a lot. So I have like a whole little like one pager on like what my application basically was. If that's something of interest to you, just let me know, just DM me, even just to say hi, and that you want to say hi, I will say hi right back. So yes.
Yeah, same here. If you have any questions just about college, environmental science, if you have like impending application anxiety, just hit me up on LinkedIn or Instagram, and I'd be willing to chat with you at any time.
Thank you again, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wow. Bye.